So earlier when I recorded this video, they hadn't removed Marjorie Taylor from her committees. Obviously that has happened now. They voted about down party lines, but then with those good old, dozen or so Republicans who are willing to jump to the other side to do virtue signaling. So she's been removed from all the committees, and this is because, I will tell you this, her speech did not do anything to her benefit for the people who were in the House listening to it. Now, it helped the people in the United States get to hear about her and hear her point of view, and I think it was good for her positioning in the whole country, but it didn't help a House body that was going to do this from the very beginning, right? Let's be real. They were going to remove her from committees from the get-go. This is not going to work. This is going to catapult this woman into a different position than she was in before. Whether she's able to handle it or take advantage of it is yet to be seen. But in this episode, we're going to listen to her speech that she gave on the floor, because I think it's fair enough, right? If the news media is calling you a QAnon crazy conspiracy theorist and a bigot and all of these things, personally, I feel like I can give you 15 minutes and let you talk, right? Isn't that fair? And then we're going to talk about Maxine Waters. Now, I don't know how this Maxine Waters episode's going to go, because I just started talking about her saying that Trump should be charged, but it took me down the strangest road. And I'm used to roads being strange, but damn, this got really strange pretty quickly once I started doing Maxine Waters research. So anyways, then we're going to look at Maxine Waters after that. But I just wanted to jump in here, acknowledge, yes, she's been removed from these committees. And yes, I still think this episode is a good episode for people to be able to meet her instead of just hear what the news media says about her, because there's a lot of people, like I said recently in my life, that they have once again started to just take what the narrative is from the news media, and it's a real dangerous thing indeed. Dangerous thing to do indeed. All right, back to the episode. She was appointed to the House Education Committee, which is not a huge appointment, but the news today is people absolutely freaking out that she was appointed to a position whatsoever. How dare you appoint this QAnon follower, whatever that means. I know that they've quoted her in incorrect manners, talking about the wildfires in California and about dew and all that, whatever. They've turned that into some kind of anti-Semitic trope, she said. I don't even know. They misread what she actually said, though. I know that much for sure. So this woman doesn't deserve committee, right? Now follow with me now, right? But this yahoo right here, Eric Swalwell, he can be bedded multiple times by a known Chinese spy named Fang Fang, like something straight out of 007, right? And what committee does he get to stay on? The Intelligence Committee. So a guy who was honey-trapped by a Chinese spy named Fang Fang gets to remain on the Intelligence Committee. Greene must be relegated to the Education Committee, if not completely removed. Let's see what she did that's so horrible.
You can listen to Congresswoman Taylor Green.
And I say this to everyone, any source of information that is a mix of truth and a mix of lies is dangerous, no matter what it is saying, what party it is helping, anything or any country it's about. It's dangerous. And these are the things that happen on the left and the right. And it is a true problem in our country. So I walked away from those things, and I decided I'm going to do what I've done all my life. I'm going to work hard and try to solve the problems that I'm upset about. So I started getting involved in politics. You see, school shootings are absolutely real. And every child that is lost, those families mourn it. I understand how terrible it is, because when I was 16 years old in 11th grade, my school was a gun-free school zone, and one of my schoolmates brought guns to school and took our entire school hostage. And that happened right down the hall from my classroom. I know the fear that David Hogg had that day. I know the fear that these kids have. And this is why, and I say this sincerely with all my heart, because I love our kids, every single one of your children, all of our children. I truly believe that children at school should never be left unprotected. I believe they should be just as protected as we were with 30,000 National Guardsmen. Our children are our future, and they're our most precious resource. I also want to tell you 9/11 absolutely happened. I remember that day crying all day long watching it on the news. And it's a tragedy for anyone to say it didn't happen. And so that I definitely want to tell you, I do not believe that it's fake. I also want to tell you that we've got to do better. You see,
I hadn't seen this video. I'm just watching it with you guys, and I'm just sitting here in utter amazement at like what the system will show you when you're not asking for it. But listening to her make that comment about the 911 things with the muzzle on her mouth that says free speech is whoa.
Media companies can take teeny tiny pieces of words that I've said, that you have said, any of us, and can portray us into someone that we're not. And that is wrong.
That's right. She had asked why was there no debris in the yard of the Pentagon, and why was there no good video footage of the plane, because we've all seen the 3 to 5 frames of video footage from the supposed light camera in the parking lot, but where is the actual video of, you know, the debris of the planes? That's what she was asking. And I don't know, you know, what your position may or may not be on that, but that's not a crazy thing. Like, most people I know were asking the same thing. Like, just regular people. We're like, yo, where... And, like, also, like, why is that, like, folded aluminum piece of the plane, like, perfectly sat there, and yet there's no disturbing of the ground? Or, look, so this is what makes her crazy? This is why she has to come out here, right here, and do this speech right here, disavowing all these things so that she can play ball. And this is one of the outsiders. She's right here. This is not an outsider. This is a person giving to the beast system. It's crazy.
Cancel culture is a real thing. It is very real. And when big tech companies like Twitter, you can scroll through and see where someone may have retweeted porn. This is a problem. This is a terrible, terrible thing. But yet, when I say that I absolutely believe with all my heart that God's creation is He created them male and female, and that should not be denied, when I am censored for saying those type of things, that is wrong. You see, here's the real situation. I decided to run for Congress because I wanted to help our country. I want Americans to have our American dream. I want to protect our freedoms. This is what I ran for Congress on. I never once said during my entire campaign, QAnon. I never once said any of the things that I am being accused of today during my campaign. I never said any of these things since I have been elected for Congress. These were words of the past, and these things do not represent me. They do not represent my district, and they do not represent my values. Here's what I can tell you. I am beyond grateful for this opportunity, and I'll tell you why. I believe in God with all my heart, and I'm so grateful to be humbled, to be reminded that I'm a sinner and that Jesus died on the cross to forgive me for my sins. And this is something that I absolutely rejoice in today to tell you all. And I think it's important for all of us to remember, none of us are perfect. None of us are. And none of us can even come close to earning our way into heaven just by our acts and our works. But it's only through the grace of God. And this is why I will tell you, as a member of this Congress, the 117th Congress, I'm a passionate person. I'm a competitor. I'm a fighter. I will work with you for good things for the people of this country. But the things I will not stand for is abortion. I think it's the worst thing this country has ever committed. And if we are to say in God we trust, how do we murder God's creation in the womb? Another thing I will say to this body is I want to work with all of you for our people. It should be America first always, always, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if this Congress is to tolerate members that condone riots that have hurt American people, attacked police officers, occupied federal property, burned businesses and cities, but yet wants to condemn me and crucify me in the public square for words that I said and I regret a few years ago, then I think we are in a real big problem, a very big problem. What shall we do as Americans? Shall we stay divided like this? Will we allow the media that is just as guilty as QAnon of presenting truth and lies to divide us? Will we allow ourselves to be addicted to...
Are you starting to understand why these people hate her and why she must be demonized and why she must be removed? Are you starting to get the picture here? Does she sound like an irrational, insane person to you? Or does it sound like she has flyover country beliefs? Things like, how can we say in God we trust and then kill God's creation in the womb? That is why they must remove her. Because she questioned 9/11. That's why they must remove her.
And hating one another? I hope not. Because that's not the future I want for my children. And it's not the future I want for any of your children. I yield back my time. Thank you.
So after her figurative flogging in front of the House body and her apology and acceptance of the current political and social dogma, how was she received by the pundits on the corporate media? Well, let's take a look.
Right, we would be having a very different conversation. We would not be having this conversation, actually, if she had said this the day after she was elected. If she had said this the first day she came to Washington, and she said, I just want to make something clear because I know things in my past have been controversial, and I have many critics, justifiably so, because of them. Namely, granted, this is what she said about QAnon. I was allowed to believe things that weren't true, and I would ask questions about them and talk about them. And that is absolutely what I regret, because if it weren't for the Facebook posts and comments that I liked in 2018, I wouldn't be standing here today, and you couldn't point a finger and accuse me of doing anything wrong. So there was contrition, there was regret, but I was allowed to believe things that weren't true. No, you believed things that weren't true. You weren't allowed, you allowed yourself. There's obviously...
No, you moron. She was allowed to believe things that are untrue. She's trying to explain how freedom of speech works. That you don't demonize and cancel a person for believing something that's incorrect. You actually show them the correct information. So what she's trying to say there is that she was given the room by the Constitution because she has the right by God to believe something that's incorrect, because our rights are God-given. But she has the right protected by the Constitution that says that she can believe the wrong thing and talk about it. So that in the marketplace of ideas, she learns the real truth. And what she said about the MSM and the anon not being far off, I've said that before out of my own mouth. Pretty much equal in what's real and what's fake in a percentage terms, right? He just doesn't even understand why she said I was allowed to believe incorrect things, because it's a growth process. It's part of learning, and they don't understand that. They do not understand that concept. It's a very simple concept.
Intelligent woman who allowed herself, didn't do the homework. You see something that posted by the QAnon, do a little homework, you realize it's quackery.
But she did do the homework, and she's changed her opinions. See, what he means by do the homework is she should have just looked up Snopes' article and an MSM article and then been done with it. That's what he means. But because she actually looked into it, that makes her a horrible, crazy person.
Sounds like she's still QAnon. I mean, I think what we don't understand about conspiracy theories...
Oh, man. I knew somebody was going to say that. I wish I had said somebody's going to say she's still QAnon.
and theories if we're not in them is the ways in which they talk and maybe dog whistle certain things that we don't necessarily understand. Because
woo, she's dog whistling, y'all.
Not knee deep in them. I think what's dangerous about this moment is she's still a conspiracy theorist, but she's sort of wrapping it in the language of conservative talk. She talked, for instance, about God creating man and woman. That really is sort of being anti-transgender.
Okay, so again, that's what she was talking about. She didn't appreciate being called anti-transgender because she made a simple statement about her beliefs about man and woman, and yet their reply to that is just to call her anti-transgender again.
Talked about gun-free zones and essentially saying that is why the shootings happen, so she's advocating for gun...
No, that she didn't say that that's why the shootings happened. You can throw that word essentially in there all you want, pundit, but that takes you're no longer a reporter. Now you're taking what she said and you're analyzing it, right? Pundit. What she said was that they absolutely happened so that she could get all that garbage out of the way about that had been reported about her and her beliefs. And then she said, I believe our children should be as protected as we are. I believe our children deserve the same amount of protection as the Capitol Hill building. What a horrible thing to say. That must make her still a conspiracy theorist, right? Because the whole idea this lady is saying is that this is what makes her still a conspiracy theorist. That she mentioned God and she mentioned guns.
Being in school zones. She said 9/11 happened, but she didn't say a plane flew into the Pentagon, because that was...
There you go.
Actually what she was saying. So I still think her elevation, into Congress and getting on these committees, she'll of course be off these committees if Democrats have anything to do with it, is very, very dangerous. And I think she is going to be much more famous and have a much bigger platform going forward. She talks the language.
She is going to have a bigger platform going forward because she talks the language of truth. Let's hear what she says.
Conspiracy theorist.
She talks the language of conspiracy theorists.
She is a fellow traveler with them, and I think this is a movement that is only going to get bigger. And as the president said, the former president said that she is a future star of this party, and I think Kevin McCarthy's ignoring that poses a real danger for the Republican Party and the country.
So there we see why it is they hate that lady. So that's the horrible Marjorie Green, or Marjorie Taylor Green, or whatever. And why she was removed from committees, because she's an evil conspiracy theorist like the rest of most of the country, because she really didn't express any views that were that far outside the mainstream. See, that's the thing, is they'll say that her views were outside of the mainstream, but what they mean is it's outside the mainstream media narrative. Because out in Main Street, in the real Main Street, that's what most of my neighbors think. Most of my neighbors have more questions than answers around the Pentagon situation. Most of my neighbors are Christian. Most of the people I've met throughout the entire country, and indeed the world, express similar views as her, that it wouldn't be considered mainstream. It's just not mainstream media narrative. It's not that it's not mainstream belief, because I don't think they would like the results of a questionnaire if they ran them about the questions that she brought up. So I was kind of, I don't like that. In the meantime, Mad Maxine Waters is calling for Trump to be charged with murder and going off the handle, and which is really absurd on her part, because she's the one who was riling up people to send people, like, if you see them in a restaurant, you push up on them and tell them they're not welcome. All that.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Now, that's not encouraging violence, according to Maxine Waters. And the political violence that happened after this was something that we had never seen before in our lifetimes. And yet she denied that she was trying to incite violence. And as protesters showed up to attack individual politicians and media people over the entire 4-year period, she was never really and truly addressed. Except she was addressed by some members of Congress. And they said some really brilliant things in that address after she made these comments. And I'm going to play them for you.
This press conference is very important because we are entering into a time in America where we have cabinet members who doesn't feel safe. We have members of the administration who doesn't feel safe. But in general, we have Republicans as a whole who doesn't feel safe. And to me, this is a reverse in time. We are discriminating not based upon race anymore, but based upon political preference. And to Maxine Waters, it's very shameful. It's shameful for someone who has experienced segregation to turn around and represent it and turn around and reverse it to political party. Yesterday, I talked with a few black conservatives who are interning here on the Hill, and they mentioned how they were kicked out of an Uber because they had MAGA hats on. And the driver said, "Oh, I can't drive you guys because I don't support Trump. I don't support the president. I don't support what you guys are wearing, so I can't do that." This is the effect of Maxine Waters. This is the effect of the Congressional Black Caucus members who haven't called her out. This is the effect of Paul Ryan, who hasn't processed the censorship. And this is the effect of the Democrat Party as a whole, who hasn't said, "Maxine Waters, you can't say that. You shouldn't say that." And this is the effects of the media, who has continued to display the recklessness of our congressmen. I'm standing here today to say that this has to stop, and the people behind me are saying that this has to stop, and the entire black conservative movement is saying that this has to stop. We must stop, and she must be stopped. Thank you, guys.
So it sounds like a lot of people were not happy about her comments, but unfortunately nobody from her party ever spoke out against them. This next speaker I really want you guys to hear, because what he says is not only applicable to what was going on back in 2016, but it's also very much applicable now.
Echo the sentiments of the previous speakers, but I want to address both of the topics that we're talking about today. A lot of our young people in our group, they use this word, and when I first heard it, they used the word crazy. They said, "This is crazy. This is crazy."
No, that's crazy.
And so now I'm saying it. This is crazy. But what's happening to our nation is crazy. I travel around the world. I oversee churches in Nigeria and Cuba and other nations. And the difference in our nation and other nations is the civility that we have.
Amen. And the thing is people who have never been in these other countries, and I'm not talking about the other first world countries of the world. I'm talking about the real places where people are just surviving. You have no idea what sets this country apart. And I've talked about it many times about how it's not exactly tangible, because you can put us on a list of education and income and blah, 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 and we come middly and sometimes low. It's not tangible what makes this country great, but this man is about to sum it up perfectly.
When we have missionaries that come to our nation, one of the things that I've heard them say is that everything works here. Everything works. Wow. They're surprised that everything works, when the traffic lights and everything. Our legislature is supposed to work. Our checks and balances are supposed to work. We go to the voting booths and we vote for people, and the one that is elected is the one that we say we want to lead, and that's it. And then the next time someone else comes in, and we're looking at now that people are saying we don't want that person because of, and we're turning into to other nations where we're saying, now let's start fighting. Let's start arguing. Let's start taking it to the streets. Let's no longer make things work. Let's begin to fight. Let's tear each other apart. The problem with Maxine Waters is not Maxine Waters because she learned that behavior. So I don't really have a problem with her. I have a problem with the people that are not saying they have a problem with her. That's the problem. She learned that behavior because people did it to her. So now she's doing it to others. But why isn't anyone jumping up and down and saying, you can't do that? We have order in the United States. You can't do that to people. The next election, we'll elect someone else maybe. But right now, sit down, be quiet, and do what you're told. That's the way it is.
Powerful words this man made back then. And I'm afraid that turn away from civility that was done in 2016 is still on display in 2020. And I question daily whether we can ever go backwards in that process. Sure hope we can.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
She then went on an apology tour and said that she wasn't calling for violence, but it's clear what she was doing. And then to have the audacity to say what she did about Trump being charged with murder, it got me down this rabbit hole because I started thinking, who was this person's influence to get her to speak and to talk and to think this way? And because, to be frank, it's quite conspiratorial, the way that she thinks. And I think I found the answer as to where that came from, and we're just going to go there. Why not? So let's listen to what she said just recently about Trump.
As a matter of fact, he absolutely should be charged with premeditated murder because of the lives that were lost with this invasion.
So yeah, Trump should be charged with premeditated murder. Now, you can also look up highlight reels of her quackery on television. She's got quite the history. It's almost like watching Biden, But there was one particular instance while I was looking into her that kind of threw me for a loop. And that was her going off about Trump at a funeral that she had been picked to eulogize for a comedian/politician named Dick Gregory. Now, when I heard the name, it kind of triggered a familiarity bell in my brain, but I hadn't quite made the connection yet. And so I first want to show you, this is her eulogy at this man's funeral. This is how she's talking.
It was the kind of homegoing people talk about for years. The City of Praise Ministries in Landover, Maryland was packed for the funeral for the legendary civil rights activist and comedian Dick Gregory. Everyone from Minister Louis Farrakhan to iconic civil rights activists and musicians, including Stevie Wonder, turned out to say goodbye.
I'm at a time now where I wish I could sit with Dick because I've got work to do. I'm cleaning out the White House. We're going to sanitize the White House. We're not going to take what is happening in this country. Haven't you taken enough? And then comes along this person who does not respect you, this dishonorable human being who cheats everybody, this dishonorable human being who will lie at the drop of a hat, this dishonorable human being who have the alt-right and the KKK and everybody else inside his cabinet. This dishonorable human being who can criticize everybody but Putin and Russia. Did he collude with Russia? I bet you Dick Gregory would tell me, yeah, he did it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here tonight because, yes, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming our time. I'm here tonight because we've got to reclaim Dick Gregory's time. We've got to honor the time that he gave to us. And so, Dick, talk to me. Send me the message. Advise me. I'm listening. Not only are we going to clean out the White House, we're going to take back the house that slaves built. And so, Lillian and family, I want to thank you. That evening, the last evening that I saw Dick in St. Louis where he performed, throughout his presentation, he really was telling us and talking about the plight of our people. Still, when they talk about the economy is doing better, our men are jobless. Our children cannot depend on us to make sure they have a decent quality of life. And yes, we have children that are problematic and are doing things that we would not like them to do. And we know what's going on in many of our cities, and a lot of people point to Chicago. But the first thing we must do is understand these kids have been dropped off of America's agenda. It is ours to love them and to embrace them and to work with them and have them understand that we're going to speak up for them, that we're not going to crawl back, that we're not going to hide because we don't have the guts and the courage to stand up for what is right. And so, Dick, I know you're listening to me. And I don't know who else is listening to you, but I'm listening to you. You're in my heart. You're in my ear. And so, not only am I talking about reclaiming time, I'm talking about creating a whole new time. This is our time to lead America. This is our time to understand too many sacrifices have been made. And I know even my colleagues get very upset. Some get afraid when I say impeachment. When I get through with Donald Trump, he's going to wish he had been impeached. I feel it very deeply. I am so offended by him, and I love my people so much that I am not going to put up with it. I'm going to say impeach 45 every day. Impeach 45 every day. Impeach 45 every day. Thank you, Dick, for inspiring me. Thank you for inspiring us all. I will never forget the lessons you have taught me. Thank you.
And so when I saw that, I'm like, wow, not only is that insane, but it seems like the people in the crowd were completely okay with her talking all this politics at this man's eulogy. Who is Dick Gregory? She spoke really highly of him towards the end, and he was obviously an influence on her. So I did a quick search, and it pulled up an old, well, it's not super old, but it pulled up an older video I saw on YouTube many years ago. I guess it must have been 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's Dick Gregory. He's being interviewed. And you've got to listen to this interview, and listen to this interview in the context of this is an influence on Maxine Waters, a dear friend and a mentor to Maxine Waters. So listen to this interview in that context, and I think you'll be like, wow. My question that I want to posit to everyone is, after going through these things about Maxine Waters, does it seem fair that Greene has been taken off of her committees and yet Waters still is a power player? Because the theories from the Dick Gregory interview I'm about to play for you, they are just as wild and fantastical as anything that ever came out of the anon.
And so, Dick, talk to me. Send me the message. Advise me. I'm listening. I know you're listening to me. And I don't know who else is listening to you, but I'm listening to you. You're in my heart. You're in my ear. Thank you, Dick, for inspiring me. Thank you for inspiring us all. I will never forget the lessons you have taught me. Thank you.
And so I truly thought about the best way for us to go over this Dick Gregory interview, this person who was so influential in Maxine Waters' life. I think the best way for us to go through it is for us to literally go through it together. So I'm going to watch it with you guys. Let's go.
This election. Let's talk about the election.
This is during the 2016 election time period.
You know, as we speak today, it's down to Hillary, Bernie, and Trump.
Yeah, but see, you're talking to the wrong person. I never believed there was going to be an election this year, and it's not. Trump ain't got no money. Trump ain't never had no money. They talk about his daddy. You ever seen a picture of his daddy? You ever seen anybody write a story about his daddy?
No. I mean, they got his money from his dad. Yeah.
I didn't ask you that. See, you keep talking to me. I don't want to hear. I asked you, have you ever seen a picture of his daddy?
No, I have not.
Have you ever heard a story about his daddy? And that don't bother you? Huh? That don't bother you? And so much of us out here been talking and shit. His sister had the whole press conference. No, he didn't give him no $100 million. He gave him $1 million. I wonder why he didn't give me none. Huh? You know? See, if you're getting in this here and you're gonna call, cause you're gonna move to people more powerful than me. I ain't gonna talk to you if you don't know nothing. The fuck I'm gonna talk to you about money if you ain't got none? That's what this shit is about. That's why NBC and ABC, that's why I look at them. Not that I believe them, they got $1 trillion industry to do the research and I can pick it apart. That's simple.
So, I know you don't expect there to be an election, but did you think Trump would get as far as he has?
I didn't know who it was. Huh? Look, let me show you something here. Let me show you the shit that I know. It's the Wall Street Journal. One of the most powerful papers in the world. Don't mean it's no good. What's the date? Now, hold it 1 minute. Hold it. Hold it. I ran for president 1968. The election was Tuesday, November the 4th. This story ran Friday, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Now, what's the date on that? What paper is that?
Wall Street Journal, November 7th, 1968, page
Headlines.
6.
Now, at this point, I want to interject and say, Dick Gregory is a comedian. Now, he's always been in politics. He's always been a politician, but he's a comedian. But he's going to show you news articles, and I'm going to take it a step further. And even the things that you're hearing from Dick Gregory, which, by the way, are pretty damn crazy and explain a lot about Maxine Waters, but even these things, I will show you, have a kernel of truth to them.
Election computer goofs gives Gregory 9 million votes.
That's why you can't talk to me. I got too much information. I got 9 million votes in the state of Pennsylvania. Huh? Okay. That's what fasting do. Huh?
Okay, so he just said fasting got him 9 million votes in Pennsylvania in that race.
Now read the first paragraph.
Some machines just aren't to be believed. Take the big computer in New York that was designed to compile results of Tuesday's general election.
All elections are tabulated in New York City.
Well, now, isn't the mentor of Maxine Waters bringing up some interesting things right now?
Go ahead.
At one point early yesterday morning, the machine was crediting Dick Gregory, the comedian turned presidential candidate, with 9 million votes in Pennsylvania.
Now, here's what happened. The energy took over, the computers, and they had to shut them down because it projected me as president-elect.
The energy took over the computers, and they had to shut down the central computers in New York to stop him from being elected president
of the United States. And they couldn't change it because they couldn't change the numbers. Wow. 9 million votes in one state. I know what it was. They went in there and tricked the machine for Nixon, but somebody put it on wrong and they gave it to me. So I'm going in the election and know all this bullshit y'all read. It ain't true. They did it just like they did that.
So now what he's actually claiming, the real claim, not that energy took over the computers. The real claim is that he's saying that all voting is fake and that 9 million votes that were supposed to be dropped into the Nixon bin accidentally were dropped into his bin. And so now they have this big hubbub during this election. And that gets interesting.
Huh? Just like they did that.
But you guys, I'll include the links in the description. Everything the man just said right there was absolutely true. There's the receipts to prove it. Crazy thing. Backup computers in New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Dallas, St. Louis, and Los Angeles finally filled the need. This is an interesting story. I'll put it in the description for you guys to read, but we just can't go into it all right now. But Dick Gregory was involved in the first computer voting tabulation scandal that happened back then. Unbelievable that this would bubble up to the top now. I mean, I'm going to play you these old videos of him too.
Well, one, I had already announced 18 months ago that I was a presidential candidate as a write-in because I feel that the two-party system is obsolete. The two-party system is so corrupt and immoral, they cannot solve the problems confronting the masses of the people in this country.
So here we go. Generations ago, decades ago, when Dick Gregory, now passed away, was running as a write-in candidate. Even then, the far left of the country saw that the current political system wasn't working. And George Wallace was popular during this time period, showing you that the far right knew that the two-party system wasn't working for them. It's a generation ago.
I did agree to accept the nomination in various states from independent organizations who had already had a position on the ballot. And this is why I have accepted. Senator McCarthy is a Democrat. And I wouldn't expect him to accept no nomination but a Democratic nomination because he's still a Democrat. He is not an independent. I think he's a tremendous influence. I don't think he's going to be that big an influence when it comes to election day. I feel, Americans playing games with themselves, but when people go into the election box, I think it's going to be a lot different. I think it's good for what he's doing because for the first time he's given a lot of people in America a means of expressing themselves that's never had that means before other than throwing a brick and burning a cross. I feel it's very healthy for black folks because black folks can't play games with themselves anymore. They got to come out to that Baptist church and realize that it is a lot of racism that exists in this country. Now, I don't feel that everybody that votes for Wallace is a vote against black folks, but 99.9% of the black folks feel that way. And so for the first time
And that's a very interesting way for him to put that, because the Wallace conversation is a very complex conversation. And if you guys would like to talk about that sometime, let me know down in the comment section. But the influence that Wallace had on politics is really understated dramatically. And he's the linchpin in the Democrat farcity of the parties switched. And at the linchpin of that story that they don't understand is that Wallace became a born-again Christian. And that's the part that people can't understand in that story. But it's complicated and it's long. But if you guys would ever like to get into it sometime, we can get into it. But here, what he's saying is, I see that a vote for Wallace isn't just a racist voting for Wallace, but the average African American sees that this is just a racist vote, a vote for Wallace.
We got to stick to measure America with that we never had before. And I would say that if Wallace's strength keeps up, there's going to be a lot of people embarrassed in this country. There's going to be a lot of jobs that opens up for black folks. There, white folks who have always been decent are going out of their way now to help out in the black community because Wallace is embarrassing them as white folks. I think that in the worldwide opinion poll, Wallace is embarrassing America, and it might tend to help our behavior on a worldwide level to try to get the prestige back that this type of political action is going to cost America.
Now, I have to tell you, that is such an enlightened response to the question about Wallace done at the time. Because Wallace is later created, he's credited with creating the ability that the Republicans gained to steal the blue dog Democrat away from the Democrats. And the political dogma is that they appeal to the white blue dog Democrats' racism to get them over there. But that's not what happened. In reality, the Democrat Party left those people. And to this day, the big conversation is, how do we get those people back that we shit-canned back in the 50s and the 60s?
Would be some of my basic goals as president to run this country from a statesmanship standpoint, not from a political standpoint. And I feel the massive problems confronting America today will be solved through statesmanship ability and not political muscle.
But imagine if he had had an actual chance, and Wallace had had an actual chance, and then you'd had Nixon and Humphreys running. It would have been a lot more of a even playing field, huh? But he was never given a real chance to run. But he did. And it did expose a, quote, computer glitch from what I know to be the first computer glitch during an election to ever happen. I never knew it happened back then. Now, an interesting thing about the Wallace story was that as you read it in all the textbooks and the Wikipedias of the world, Nixon was terrified that Wallace was going to steal all the Republican votes and cause the Democrat to win.
At almost midday Eastern Time, NBC News projected Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, when it became evident he had carried Illinois. Final returns may well reveal that indeed it was Mayor Richard Daley's Illinois and Mayor Richard Daley's Chicago which averted a deadlock and a political constitutional crisis of incredible proportions. 94% of the population...
So if you look here, does this look like the Wallace vote was leaned more towards one political party or another? If the represented dogma of the day is that Wallace, who was running as an independent but was supporting segregation and other policies, why didn't it take all of Nixon's votes? Why was it split right down the middle? If all the racists were in the Republican Party then, or in the Democrat Party then, and now there's one party of racists now, why is the vote always so evenly split? Even with a disruptor like Wallace getting 9 million votes, the difference between the two main candidates is still less than a percentage point. So when you read your textbooks and you read the Wikipedias about Wallace, and they say they were terrified that Wallace was going to take away all the Republican votes and Nixon was going to lose, Wallace's 9 million voters came almost exclusively evenly out of both parties.
As it turned out, in the late, tired hours of last night or the early, tired hours of this morning, Richard Nixon won the election this time where 8 years ago he lost it in Illinois. It was so close it took forever, but he won it, and in winning that he won the presidency. It was, again, one of the closest elections in American history.
Sound familiar? We went over the 2000 election. We've just gone through the 2020 election. 2016 election. Is this all starting to sound familiar? This is in black and white.
Closer even than when Nixon lost to Kennedy 8 years ago. His lead over Humphrey in the popular vote is still only about 25,000 votes, or about 1/5 of a vote per precinct. There are states where we still don't know, even now, for certain, who won. But whichever way these states go now, they can't change the outcome.
The interesting thing to me about all of this is that Dick Gregory was talking about the 9 million votes. He said they were probably supposed to go to Nixon. But look at the number of votes Wallace ended up getting. I think they accidentally put Dick Gregory as the number 3 candidate instead of down in the others category, and for a while Dick Gregory's name was there where Wallace's name wasn't supposed to be. I mean, what are the chances that Wallace ends up with 9 million and some votes and there was a 9 million vote mistake in Dick Gregory's favor? I don't know. What do I know? So Dick Gregory has been a politician / comedian for quite some time at the time that he passed, and her eulogy makes a little bit more sense now. But as we continue to listen to this guy, I want you to think about it in the context of Maxine Waters.
Yeah, the one time Trump lost, he said it was rigged. The few weeks ago.
First, there's 2 Trumps.
Okay.
The one in the red tie is the real one. The one in the blue tie is not. The one you saw last night after the victory was the blue tie. Now, if you...
So there's 2 different Trumps, the blue tie Trump and the red tie Trump. This is Maxine Waters' mentor now. And remember, the anon people are crazy.
You would punch up Dr. Carson, Ben Carson, when Trump called him a pedophile. And the next day he joined Trump. And the guy asked him, see, every now and then you slip and say something? He said, why'd you do that? He said, it's 2 Trumps. I was with the good one. You see it there? Just punch up. When somebody interviewed him, he said, there's 2 Donald Trumps. That's easy to pull up.
All right, let's pull it up.
There are 2 different Donald Trumps. There's the one you see on the stage, and there's the one who's very cerebral, sits there and considers things very carefully. You can have a very good conversation with him. And that's the Donald Trump that you're going to start seeing more and more of right now.
I think I was Googling.
Okay, so there you go. He said there was 2 Trumps.
I was Googling Ben Carson pedophile. I was Googling the wrong thing.
No, he called him that the day before. So you know he got something on him if he's going to make him the next day say, I join you.
Made him the next day say, I join you after he called him a pedophile? What the hell did Trump say?
Pathological. Somebody said he has pathological disease. Other people said he said in the book, and I haven't seen it, I know it's in the book, that he's got a pathological temper or temperament. That's a big problem because you don't cure that. That's like, you know, I could say, they'd say you don't cure, as an example, child molester. You don't cure these people. You don't cure a child molester. There's no cure for it. Pathological, there's no cure for that.
It's a miracle Trump made it as far as he did sometimes. I really think about just the way that he talks is just crazy. So this is why they quote him out of context all the time, and they can just bash him up. That's what he's saying. I'm not agreeing with it one way or the other, but that's what he's saying.
Are you aware that made him world renowned? Carter, what he did.
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson. You know how he got world renowned?
He separated the twins.
Head twins.
The brain. Yeah, from the brain. He separated
Siamese twins.
Siamese twins.
He wasn't even in the room when that happened.
Can you see all these claims? You see all these claims that this man makes? Remember what Maxine Waters said, that he was her mentor, that he was calling down to her. So when she's screaming impeachment, and push up on these people, this is her mentor. These are unhinged conspiracy theories. But they're all right.
Can you give us sort of a brief synopsis as to what even gave you the idea
Sure.
that was possible?
Well, I was the first one, along with my team, to separate type. These are called occipital craniopagus twins, joined at the back of the head. And the reason it's so complex is because the vasculature is very, very complicated, and they generally bleed to death. Well, I had gotten interested in the whole concept of conjoined twins. For some strange reason, it just fascinated me, and I started reading a lot of the literature, trying to figure out why the results were so dismal with attempted separations, and concluded that it was exsanguination or bleeding to death. I was talking to a good buddy of mine who was the chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Johns Hopkins, and he had done a lot of work with hypothermic arrest, where you cool the body temperature until the heart stops, pump all the blood out of the body, and then you can operate on a baby's heart up to an hour before you have to pump the blood back in, warm it up, and start the heart up again. And I was thinking, if we got to a critical point in the separation, we could go on hypothermic arrest, get through all the complicated vasculature, and then restructure it, reconstruct it, and then pump the blood back in and start the heart up. And then I was saying, why am I thinking about this? I'm never going to see a set of twins like that. They're very rare. Lo and behold, 2 months later, here they came. Here came the German doctors presenting this case all over to major medical centers to see if anybody had a solution. Because in Europe, they were advocating to the mother that she choose which twin she wanted, and they would chop the other one off. And, she couldn't come to that decision because she loved both of them. And so I explained this ideal I had about using hypothermic arrest. Everybody said, whoa, that sounds like it might be good. And we sat down and we started putting together some plans. And, I'm very much advantaged by being at a place like Johns Hopkins, where you have a lot of incredibly smart people who know a lot about different things. And, we put our heads together and we came up with a plan. And, the rest is history.
Now, that doesn't sound too much like he wasn't in the room, doesn't know what he's talking about. It sounds like he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Wasn't in the room. He's been campaigning for 8 months. Have you ever heard him mention it? No. Everybody else mentioned everything they did with a plus, right? If what they said he did was true.
So wait, time out. First of all, he's saying being humble is a bad thing because he didn't mention it on the campaign trail. Second of all, he says everybody mentions everything great they did when they're on the campaign trail. Well, exactly how do you brag about separating conjoined cerebral twins to a political crowd? I mean, Trump gets up there and he's very ABC about his topics. It's not like you can get up there and start bragging about that type of stuff that we just heard in that interview. It makes no sense.
Then the question we need to ask, how come he's never been nominated for a Nobel Prize? Didn't say get one. The nomination.
I can answer that question, and it's kind of a sad question. But the German twins came here. They had no other choice. They were separated. The doctors told the mother that they hoped that both twins would be fully functioning adults. They kept track of them for several months. Then the mother took them back to Germany, where they were both heavily institutionalized and never made it past the point of severe retardation and didn't live wonderful lives. Now, it was a stepping stone to where we are now, where these types of twins can be separated and live long and fruitful lives. In fact, Dr. Ben Carson, by his third surgery, was responsible for a separation of the exact same kind in South Africa, where both twins lived long and healthy lives. But he was part of a larger team, and what they did, although it was a stepping stone, it wasn't a success. I think the reason why he didn't get nominated for a Nobel Prize at this time was most likely because he hadn't deserved it.
He's never been nominated for a Nobel Prize in medicine. See how the thinking, when the thinking hits? And when he said at the president's prayer breakfast, compared Obama, what do you call it, the insurance, Obamacare.
Obamacare, yeah.
Is worse than slavery, remember that? He was fired by the time he got back to Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, they fired him.
They'd already paid him for 2 weeks later to do the commencement. They said, keep the money. You better not be caught on this campus again.
So the two Donald Trumps, Bernie.
Huh?
Bernie Sanders. So
I didn't know that much about Bernie other than he come from a place where there ain't no black folks. So I just assumed he's CIA.
CIA? Well, I don't know how he got there, but he's probably right.
You know, you can't do what he's doing across the country and nobody know you. But I got the experience of the Beatles, how they can manipulate crowds. Young folks, okay?
He says, that's very interesting. Bernie Sanders has the type of ability to manipulate young crowds, like the Beatles had. It's almost talking about spellcasting there.
Sometimes you compound stuff with the stuff you know, and you do that by shutting up listening. Huh? Wow. Huh? And so, Hillary, they can take her down anytime they want her. Put her in jail. And she don't have to do nothing. That's how they do it.
He's not wrong there.
You saw the pictures of Monica. They can have a picture with her screwing a gorilla. They have that technology now. ISIS, I mean, you stupid enough to believe with trillions of dollars, satellites, we didn't see him putting the military, he's us.
Yeah, he's us.
Trained by General Petraeus.
Whoops.
And every time we overrun his lines, he ain't got nothing but American equipment. You know, it's a game. The mightiest military in the history of the planet, and these white folk, they bomb him every day and they can't, come on.
So, I mean, well, what does it say about the country this election, that somebody like Trump would even be the prime candidate?
I'm not even gonna answer. See, you take it to someplace else. Huh? You answer it. I just told you. Huh? I said so-and-so is a man in a dress. What color dress he gonna wear next week? That's your shit. Okay. You getting into gossip now.
Okay.
Do we see where Maxine Waters got her persona? Are we starting to understand Maxine Waters a little bit more?
People I talk to know who I am. They wouldn't even ask me a question like that. Because if I know that, they know I know something else they don't know. A brother asked me, he said, I saw the article. You said Trump is gay. How'd you know? Because he ain't never bashed gays. Talk about Jesus, you know.
So here's his next claim. Trump is gay because he's never bashed gays. Okay.
Pope, you use some of that shit on your own. Huh? And then you see it. Huh? It's simple.
Thank you, Minister Derek.
And so that's Dick Gregory, folks. That's the person that she mentored over. Let's just hear it one more time.
And so, Dick, talk to me. Send me the message. Advise me. I'm listening. I know you're listening to me. And I don't know who else is listening to you, but I'm listening to you. You're in my heart. You're in my ear. Thank you, Dick, for inspiring me. Thank you for inspiring us all. I will never forget the lessons you have taught me. Thank you.
I think it goes a long way to explaining Mad Max. All right, guys. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Check y'all later. Peace.